Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. On the podcast today is Emily Moore. She owns and operates the Bean Countery, which is a certified profit-first, full-service accounting and advising firm. What started as a side hustle to save her soul from corporate finance has grown over the past decade, and now it's a full-time passion of hers to meet entrepreneurs where they are and improve their business finances and overwhelm so they can live the life they crave. Emily lives in northern Kentucky near Cincinnati. She loves to write and spend time with her hilarious family. She is an enthusiastic advocate for freedom, and she works hard so that her clients can experience as much of it as possible. Emily and I are friends. We're both certified Profit First professionals, and we're in a joint mastermind group. So we've worked together for well over a year or more, not only in serving our joint clients, but also in helping each other. And so we team up quite a lot. Today we have a great discussion about bookkeeping and accounting, and you just might even hear me get a bit passionate on the topic of balance sheets. I know that might be weird for some of you, but hang with me, because to be profitable, that balance sheet needs to be right. So listen in. I'm sure there'll be some great takeaways for you. Enjoy. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, so happy to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here too. Just so everybody knows, I know we mentioned it in the intro that you are also Profit First certified, but we've met and we've been in a mastermind together and hung out at dinner together and other things, and we both love the Profit First methodology as far as implementing it in the businesses that we serve and that we help with. And you are a bookkeeper extraordinaire.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we're going to jump in today and we're going to talk about your business. And then also I'm going to ask you some burning bookkeeper questions that I get asked a lot. And I'm just going to let you answer them for us. How about that?
That sounds perfect.
Sounds good. So Emily, start off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Well, the business began in 2005 as an attempt to kind of save my own soul from my corporate finance positions. Both my parents are entrepreneurial. In fact, out of my four siblings, we are all self-employed.
Wow.
So it's really, I don't know where it came from, but we're all really passionate about business and just being self-sufficient as much as we can. And I guess we all are terrible employees.
Emily, did you grow up talking about entrepreneurship?
Yes, we did.
So you saw it modeled and you talked about it in business in general and all of that?
Yeah, so when I was around 5, my dad and his father purchased about 50 acres of land, and they started a landscape tree nursery and landscape service. And my father at the time worked night shift. He was a plant supervisor at a plastics factory here in northern Kentucky. So he would work his night shift job and then go straight to the farm in the morning. And that's what lit him up. He was outside and in nature. He was helping people design their landscaping. And it was something he and his father just had always loved doing. Like, they loved doing their yard work and stuff. So it was a great thing for their relationship as well. And so over the years, I grew up, just watching how much work it takes to do that, but B, talking about it. I mean, there's always challenges in entrepreneurship, and something I love is solving those challenges or figuring out the best way through them. And I think that started just listening to my dad talk about whatever, because he was complaining, but it wasn't negative. It was more like, I've got to figure this out, or this customer is presenting this kind of challenge. And it was never like oh, this is stupid, I'm out of here. It was always like, I need to solve this. So I don't know, like he's just one of the most optimistic people I've ever known. And so hearing his version of running his business was always fun for me. And then my mother had a cleaning business for several years while we were in school. And at some point, she and two of my aunts had a craft business where my dad would cut, these wooden holiday shapes and things, and they would paint it, and then they would have craft shows and at people's homes and sell it and things like that. So that's just always been around me. And when I was in, this is going to be kind of a little bit of a long story, but when I was in my first 2 years of college for accounting, I still lived in Northern Kentucky, where I'm from and where I was raised. And I remember saying to my dad and my grandfather, like, well, I know how to do books now. Let me do your books. And my grandfather is this very proud, stubborn World War II vet. And he's like, no. When you've got your 4-year degree, then we'll talk. But no, like you're only halfway there and you're not ready for it. So, but I never got the chance because very shortly after that, I moved to Florida, where I finished my degree, but I stayed in Florida for 9 years. And by the time I came back up, the business, they made a bad deal with a family member, and the business, it got really ugly really fast. And it was this long drawn out court process. And anyway, paying the legal fees to fix their mistake bankrupted the company.
Wow.
And then there are all sorts of like tax ramifications where my grandfather just didn't know, like there were payroll checks that were cut, but were never cashed. But because the W-2 said that person received that money, taxes had to be paid on it. And so like it turned into this disaster. And it took several years to clean it up. And it had a big impact on my parents and just their financial stability. So,
and probably you too from watching it, you would see the good side of entrepreneurship, but then that also shows the scary side. I mean, we're all a couple of decisions away at any point in time from losing things, right? That's the whole kind of thought process behind Profit is a Choice, is that we're making choices every day that impact the financial stability and the health of our company. Every day we're making choices.
Right. And I found some other things. Once I moved back up, I lived with my parents for about 2 months while my husband and I were trying to find a place to live. And through conversations with my mom, because my dad wasn't going to talk about it, discovered there were some more things. And I'm like, oh, if I only would have known that this was going on, like I could have helped and just said, hey, make sure you do X. And it would have solved 2 years worth of problems, but because I didn't know, I didn't do it. And I know I'm not responsible for that, but I still feel.
But you were actually doing what your dad was doing. I see a problem, I see a challenge, and I could have solved that.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I put that same energy into my work. So I started this as a side hustle, and it was mainly just to be in the entrepreneur conversation and feel like I had some sort of impact, because where it was a very successful Fortune 100 company, blah, blah, blah. I felt like anyone could do this job. Like there's nothing special in my brain that they were utilizing for their success. I had nothing to do with the success of that company. And I don't know, maybe that's just ego. I want to have more, input or whatever. But I had worked at a small CPA firm, and I knew that there are a lot of businesses who aren't yet making enough or paying enough for their services to really get much attention. So there are things that they are just avoiding when it comes to letters they might get from a taxing authority or vendor relationships that are going south or whatever. They didn't really have any place to turn to get information on just like, how do I handle this and what should I do? So I started by this was early 2000s. I ripped out a page of the Yellow Pages and went to my car And I made about 10 cold calls on my lunch break and just said, hi, my name is Emily. This is what I do. I'm just calling to see if there's anything maybe you're avoiding that you could use help with, or if you want to talk more about whatever.
Wow.
And I got 2 people in that same lunch break were like, oh, this was Jacksonville, Florida. So they're very, very religious down there. So I got 2 like, oh, you're a godsend. I was just praying about this and here you are calling,
Wow.
very, very positive response, which I was not expecting.
I love that. Okay, so my name is Emily. I'm just calling to see, here's my services. If there's something that you're avoiding that I can come in and help you with, like, way to cut right to the heart of the matter. Like, what are you avoiding? Okay, because you and I both know we come at the financial and the profitability aspect a little bit differently. I mean, you come at it from the lens of a bookkeeper. I come at it as an advisor and a coach. But we're still looking at things that we know that most people would rather avoid. They want to avoid these things. And I also know, because you and I have been friends and colleagues and worked together on projects with clients and stuff over the years, that you enjoy the forensic accounting part. And I wonder if that's because of what you also saw with your family business, that let me dig into the forensics, to the backstory that got you here. Because a lot of bookkeepers and accountants do not enjoy the forensic accounting, which is where you come in and the books are a mess and somebody's got to go backwards and start cleaning them up. But you actually enjoy that. You have told me on multiple occasions that you love it. It's like a puzzle for you. You're solving the problem and putting it together. And I know that's because that's an area that people avoid. So like, I'm already like learning more about you from even your family story. It makes sense why that's something that intrigues you, to go in and look at what's been avoided and what has kind of been, as my client would say, put it in the closet, turn the light off, and let's act like it's not there. You're turning on the light and opening the closet and fixing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. That might be where it comes from. But I really enjoy that. And so in the beginning, my whole purpose for doing any of it wasn't really for extra money or anything. It was more just like for my heart to be happy. I felt like I needed to be really helping someone do something. So I did that for a number of years. And then I moved back home to Northern Kentucky in 2011. And, here I have a larger, warmer network. So just naturally, I picked up more and more clients. And in 2018, January of last year, I stepped full-time into just the Bean Countery and growing this business now.
And so what are some of the services that you offer? So you offer bookkeeping and profit first strategy.
Yeah, we do bookkeeping and accounting, which can be anything from, like you said, I haven't looked at my books in months because I know there's a problem and I don't know how to fix it. And so I'm just avoiding it. We do a lot of just one-off projects. If you want to retain us as your monthly bookkeeper or whatever, great. But if not, that's fine too. We just want you to be okay and on the right path. So we do a lot of just cleanup projects. We offer tax filing services for, state and local, or state, federal, and local income taxes. We do offer payroll service. What else is there? If you have sales tax, that's part of our monthly deal of what we do. And then there's advisory stuff with just, if you just want help with profit first, or if you just want to scale in this area, we can help you with that. My take, I'm really passionate about this deterioration, I feel like, of a relationship between clients and their accountants, where I've seen it, where a business owner will be in the middle of a conversation like, oh, it's my accountant calling, I'm not going to answer it, I don't want to talk to them. I would cry if I knew my clients were doing that if I called, because I really strive to partner with all of our clients. I don't want to, while I do enjoy the forensic stuff and solving the problems, I don't want to just do that and hand you a report
Mm-hmm.
and be done. I feel like an accountant's job is not just to do that. We offer advice. If we see something that could potentially cause a problem down the road, our job is to educate them and let them know why this might need to be adjusted one way or the other. Or if I know my clients want to hit a specific goal, I'm going to make any recommendation I can that I know will help them take whatever amount of steps towards that goal. So that's just something that really bothers me, and I really strive to make sure my clients know that I don't know how to do what it is that you're really good at in your business. Like I've got a personal chef client who's just hitting it out of the park, and I get so excited, like just seeing just the moves that they're making. I just think it's amazing. So I try to be that cheerleader, but also make sure they have the confidence that everything that I'm either saying or giving to them is accurate and in their best interest. So there's really we incorporate companies. We do a lot of just different things. But if I were to boil it down to two things, it would be the bookkeeping and accounting and just helping them move where they want to go.
So as a bookkeeper, Emily, what are some of the day-to-day activities that you do? Because the reason I ask that is a lot of clients will call and say to me, I don't know if I need a bookkeeper. How do I know if I need a bookkeeper? And what can they do for me? Now, I know that we can engage in services and products in a multitude of ways. So some might want payroll, some might not. Some might want them to do invoicing and PO generation, and some might not. So everybody's got a different idea.
Mm-hmm.
And but what would you say are some of the day-to-day activities, or even monthly, if we just want to look at it monthly? What are some of the major things, products, services, tasks that a bookkeeper might do? I mean, we know the accounting side does the filings for taxes, not kind of, but the day-to-day bookkeeping. What is it that you would provide to a company that would be considered bookkeeping services?
Keeping their cash reconciled, not only their cash, but other balance sheet accounts, like any liabilities or loans that they might have out that they're responsible for other people, or vice versa, where someone owes them. We want to make sure that information is up to date as often as possible.
Credit cards, right? That's considered a cash or a bank account.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked at how many don't understand that's it's like a bank account, and we have to manage that.
Absolutely.
It has to be reconciled too.
I would love it if we were able to keep things, excuse me, so up to date that a business owner can just pull up their dashboard and QuickBooks or whatever program that they use and see, okay, there's this much money in my OPEX account, or if they're not using Profit First, just in their operating account, and that we can make decisions with, or that we can figure out where we're going. So the reconciliations are super important. Not only that, but a lot of people who aren't bookkeepers and accountants don't fully understand the chart of accounts and what a transaction in one account might do or have effect somewhere else, which is fine. But I think that's important, that you have someone who understands the relationship between liabilities and equity and assets and expenses, things like that. Additionally, something that's super important, especially with project type services, I have a roofing client who has, 20 projects in a month, and we want to know how profitable was each of those jobs, not just the company overall. So, interior designers should be, I would assume, doing the same thing and running that same analysis. What am I making on this? And if I'm not, what needs to change for the next one? So it's important to keep your finger on all that information. And just having someone who knows how to do that efficiently is really important. But also projections is something we offer to say, like, okay, it's June, here's how you've done so far, and based on what, the trends have been, or whatever, maybe you've got a big marketing push and so you're expecting better than last year, or whatever, we can adjust that and kind of see the model, what it looks like if you maintain your management as how you're doing it now, what you can expect at the end of the year. And that gets updated as each month goes on, to kind of keep them in tune with what it is they actually want, versus just getting bogged down in the day-to-day operations of the business.
That's a huge tool, that projection analysis. With a lot of my clients, I'll do like a quick and dirty annualized, right? So like right now we are, about halfway through the year. So what we would do is I would stop and I would say, here's what you've done to date, divide it by 6. If I were to multiply it by 12, this is where you could be, assuming all things remain the same, not looking at trends or percentages, just an annualized average.
Right.
And that's always shocking if they've not looked at it that way, to go, what? Really? Or, oh my gosh, that's not enough, I'm behind, or whatever, when you can start to see how it might play out in the whole year. And then when you add that layer on top of it is, okay, so normally in May I make, 18% of all my income for the year. What does that look like for you? And what if you had a marketing push that moved June from 7% to 12%? What might that, you know what I mean?
Right.
You can start to look at the numbers and see how they work, not only in isolation, but in correlation with each other. It's astounding. I mean, I know you see this, right? But this is what gets me jazzed and energized, is when I teach somebody and you teach somebody, when I see them learn how to take those numbers and actually use them, when they see the power of those numbers, and it's almost like you're holding energy in your hands and you're like, oh my goodness, now I know what to do with that. Like, I don't have to wonder. I don't have to think. Some people think, and I struggle with fighting this message even in my own marketing campaigns. I've mentioned this to you, that if they think profitability and finances, they think it just means their books need to be reconciled. Well, I don't need to worry about it because my books are reconciled. No. The strategies that I teach, that you teach, are so much different. It's more than, that's important. That's huge. We got to trust the numbers. But then we're going to make the numbers work for us. I feel like I'm already, like, as Luann Nagaro would say, I feel like I almost want to levitate. But it's kind of that whole, no. It's not enough to have them on a spreadsheet. It's when you can make them walk and talk and sing and dance on your behalf. That's where the excitement comes in, right? That's where you start getting this, oh my gosh, I can take that number and I can plan, and I can figure out where we're going, or I can fix the problem that I have, because the numbers don't lie. And then it's just this power that is unbelievable by looking at the numbers.
It absolutely is. Well, not only that, but once you've got a client who does understand the numbers, and especially if they're using Profit First, I think it makes it so much easier. But you can almost have two side-by-side models. Like, okay, we're expecting this for the business. This is what it means for you personally.
Yes.
This is now, like, you just pull it. It's not the same information, but you use one to influence the other. And that's why you're working anyway, right? Is to fuel your lifestyle or reach whatever personal goals you have. So tying them together, once someone really understands what it all means, is so powerful.
Yeah, because you get to impact how much you bring home or don't. I know my husband and I sit every year and we have a conversation. How much is going into 401k from you and your business, from him and his business? How much are we putting in retirement? How much do we want to do with this? What does this need to be? What kind of vacations do we want to take? How much time off do we want to take? And then we almost create, well, we don't almost, we create these financial models. His earning potential is more limited than mine is, only because he's in a salaried position, a corporate salaried position. So, his doesn't fluctuate wildly. Thank goodness. His is super straight and dependable. And mine has become that as well. But mine has, a lot more opportunity to go up or down based on my activity.
Right.
So my activity drives what comes into our home for us to be able to spend or save or do whatever we want to do with. And so the two of us understand that, so that when I can say, okay, I'm going to not do this with you or with the family, instead I'm going to do this, they understand the trickle down of what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just like mom's in there on the computer and we're all watching a family movie, which I used to get a little bit of that gruff, at times. It's like, okay, we know what she's doing. It's cool. And then they probably watch some boy movie that I wouldn't have wanted to watch anyway. And so it works out. But seriously, right? It's the power of the numbers.
Yeah.
The power of the numbers.
And as an entrepreneur, you're right. The sky's the limit. I mean, you can offer a new service line and it can completely change the next 2 years of your business. If it's implemented right and managed well and people want it, it changes everything. So knowing the numbers, what they represent and what they can do for you is key. And which is, again, why you need to have a good relationship and not avoid your accountant. But if your accountant's not providing that information, you need a new one. Or you need to have a conversation with them and say, what else can you give me to prove your value and what you're providing my company?
Or here's what I need. Can you meet that need?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's hard to know what the need is. So Emily, I'm going to say that there is one area of the bookkeeping and accounting for companies that has been driving me crazy lately. So I'm just going to air some dirty laundry right here on the podcast. Ready? It's the balance sheet. Hello. Nobody look. It is the most underused document. That is the most needed document. And if I get one more dirty balance sheet, I think I'm going to lose my mind. What do I mean by dirty balance sheet? I mean, if you look at a balance sheet and it has a liability, which means you owe something. Liability means you owe. And if there is an amount there that it says you owe under liability and you say you don't owe it, that's a dirty balance sheet. I am just astounded at, we have some project management companies or project management tools in the interior design industry that also do accounting, and they do the accounting for people. I am shocked at the ones that, if they come to me and I go, oh, did you know you owe $60,000 to the state for taxes? No, I don't. Yes, you do. Based on your balance sheet, you do. Do you know that you have a credit card bill of blah, 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 blah? No, I don't. Yes, you do. We need to look here. Oh, did you know that? No, I don't. Yes, you do. Go look right here. Why is your bank account, why are all of your checking accounts a negative amount? They're not. Yes, they are. Okay. You're laughing, right? If this happened once, I think I would be like, okay. I mean, you can hear like this is the most energizing podcast I've done, because this is like, it drives me crazy. And I feel so bad because they've got what they assume to be professionals working on their books, giving them dirty, nasty balance sheets that if most people looked at, they'd tell them you're getting ready to go out of business.
Right.
And it may not be true. And I'm shocked at the bookkeepers and the accountants that focus on the P&L. And I get it, because that matches up with the checkbook. That's what we all want to look at. It's cleaner. I'm going to put that in air quotes. Mm-hmm. But those balance sheets, why? Tell me, Emily, why are people ignoring the balance sheet? Why don't they clean it up? And why are they so scared of it?
I think it comes down to understanding them. Like you said, I mean, if I think I've got someone handling my stuff, then this not me personally, but this is what a lot of businesses,
the collective I or us, yeah,
the collective I, then I don't need to look at it. I know when my Discover bill comes in how much I owe, so why would I need to look at a report to tell me? But that means if you've got a $4,000 balance on your balance sheet for some credit card and you're saying that, no, it's paid off, there is no balance on it, there's $4,000 somewhere in your general ledger that's wrong.
Or missing or something.
Yeah, or maybe you paid that out of your personal funds and it wasn't recorded, but that needs to be recorded. Anything that affects your business needs to be recorded, whether it comes from your cash or not. So I think it's like having someone kind of putting the Band-Aid on what you need done, but still keeping your head in the sand.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know where it really shows up, and it can get really squirrely fast, is if your bookkeeper, and this is quite often the case, your bookkeeper is not the accountant. So the bookkeeper is doing one piece and the accountant is doing the taxation piece. And if that accountant is just picking up dirty books and looking at it, they're going to be making tax decisions and filling out documents on the business's behalf on incorrect documentation.
That's
and
right.
I've mentioned this on the podcast before, and I'm not trying to scare everybody, but I am going to scare you. Most bookkeepers and accountants now have you sign that you are responsible ultimately for those numbers, not them. And so I know when I go to my accountant and I say, here are my books, and she's like, okay, you're verifying that everything was in the right category when you gave it to me. And now I'm going to work off the numbers in the categories that you've given. Well, if I don't know what they are and I'm not checking over those numbers and I'm just handing them off from person A to person B, I've signed my name on the line.
That's right.
That I am agreeing that all of these numbers are in the right buckets at the right place at the right time. Doggone it, I better look at that. I better know what I'm doing. We're talking whole businesses on the line here.
Right. Well, and if you need a line of credit, if you need a loan of any sort, if you're thinking of selling your business anytime in the near future, like all of that needs to be correct
and cleaned up,
just for your own management analysis. I mean, you've got to be able to look at that stuff, and so I would encourage everyone to look at it.
Especially after this conversation, right?
Don't just receive the email from whoever's doing it and save it in a folder somewhere on your network. Like, you really need to look at it and ask questions. What does this mean? Why is this a negative number on my balance sheet?
Right.
You should not have any.
That's right. That's exactly why I built the Understanding Your Financials course, is because I realized people didn't know. I asked a question I spoke at High Point Market, and I had about 80 people in the room, designers, and I asked them how many kept up with their financials. And I would say a good number raised their hand. And then I said, okay, so how many of you get your reports and look at them once a month? Went down. How many of you know what you're looking at? Like 3 hands out of 80 went up. So they were all looking at it and checking off that it came in, but they weren't looking at it. Like, they didn't analyze it. They didn't know what they were looking at. They checked on the fact that email delivered it from the bookkeeper or the accountant. And I realized they didn't know. The reason they weren't looking wasn't because they didn't want to. They didn't know what they were looking at. And they didn't know what each number and category represented. And so that's exactly what the Understanding Your Financials course does. It teaches you, here's how to go look at that. Here's how to break it down into real people speak. And then if you know how to understand it, then you can actually even formulate the questions to ask a bookkeeper or an accountant like you. Because a lot of them say to me, Michelle, I would ask them, but I don't even know what to ask. And I don't know how to say to them, I think these numbers are wrong, or I don't know how to say to them, help me fix this. And then to your pet peeve, if you've got one that doesn't take on the advisory role, that's looking to kind of coach and help them, consult them through, you got a recipe for disaster. You got nasty, muddy books. Yep. You've got, a business owner who's not looking at them or doesn't know what they're looking at. And then you've got somebody with a non-advisory services. They're just checking the box and moving you through year after year. Yep. And I will tell you, there are many of my clients, not all my clients, but there are many of my clients that's what prompts the phone call to me, is they're making $1 million in total sales, but they're not making the money at the bottom, and they have huge debts that they owe to the federal government and other things. And it's just that the numbers haven't been watched.
Yeah. Well,
that I know.
That course is so necessary. Really, it should be, just like all the memes you see on social media, like, it's 2019, they should be teaching tax preparation and all this stuff in high school. But that is something people should be exposed to that well before they're out in the world, because even if you don't own your business, you should know what those things are. It's important.
Well, and we have them in our own personal finances at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got a liability if I owe money on my house, but I got some asset going on there too for what you know what I'm saying? It's that we have the same thing in our own personal finances. It's just even understanding the concepts behind it. And I just hosted a retreat for some of my one-to-one clients, and I asked them, we were talking about their own personal worth, like family worth, like, right? They didn't know what that was. They didn't even know how to calculate it. And, you know, it's a very similar thing to figuring out your business worth, to figure out your family worth. What's everything you own? Write out. What's everything you owe? Now let's look at them together.
I actually run our household like a business that way. Like we have a QuickBooks file, and everything gets ran through that way. And so we know what's going on, and
we do the same thing.
Hitting our goals, yeah.
Yep. And I'm a Dave Ramsey fan. I know that you are too. So I'm a Dave Ramsey fan and Profit First fan, and we run our home. You're right. We do the same thing in our home that we do in our business.
Yeah.
So what do you see outside of the messy balance sheet that drives me crazy and makes me want to go hug my client's neck and get them a new bookkeeper or accountant? Outside of that, what other common mistakes do you see in bookkeeping or in accounting that we might want to touch on, just to let the listeners have something that maybe they could go back and look at their own and go, okay, wait a minute, flag.
Sure.
What kind of things do you see?
Well, I had mentioned this earlier, but chart of accounts.
Touch on that a little more. Tell us what you mean by chart of accounts.
So your chart of accounts is basically, it's the bones that make up the body of your finances. So it's everything from, it's a list. It's literally a list of all of your general ledger accounts. Every bank account that you have, your accounts receivable, any cost of goods account, any expense, any liability, down to your equity with, the value that your portion of ownership in the business. So when people who are setting up their accounting framework, oftentimes do that on their own because it's the very beginning of their business and they really don't have anyone alongside them helping them. There might be an account that they put in there called car loan, and they'll put it as an expense because
it is an expense. It is something that they're paying for.
It comes out of their bank account, and so they just put their $400 car loan on the car loan chart or line item. And they wouldn't know this because they really wouldn't have a reason to if they weren't in this line of work. But your car loan isn't just your car loan. You're paying a portion to your principal, which is a liability. That's the actual balance of your loan. And the remainder, there's another piece of that payment that's going to interest, which is an expense and will be on your P&L. So, it's just things like that. Like it's.
And asset accounts are very similar. When you buy computers and things like that, how are you going to write that off? Is that going to be an asset of the company, or what are you going to do with that? Making some of those decisions are super important. And the other thing I've seen with chart of accounts, that another pet peeve of mine, a pet peeve because it makes it difficult to analyze quickly. I'm all about, and you and I've we've had conversations about charts of accounts, and I want them to be detailed enough for you to analyze, but not so detailed that they're overwhelming. And that's a fine line of where to get that. Yeah. But I've seen that where they categorize their income accounts very differently than the cost of goods account. Yeah. And so then you can't, like, for example, income furniture or sales furniture, cost of goods, furniture and rugs. And then you're going, okay, well, I can't even, I can't analyze, is this good or is this bad? Because I'm combining things in one place and not another, or I've mixed them differently. And, really having it clean so that you can look at it and in a glance, I can see the difference between, oh my gosh, look, the income for that is under the cost of goods for that. That should be a flag for me to stop and think. But when things aren't laid out that clearly in a chart of accounts, it can cause either more work to have to figure it out, or you don't know, how to read the numbers because they all seem muddy. And then you stop again, right?
Well, and also if you're using a third-party payment processor, so I have some clients, Square, they run all of their transactions through their Square app or whatever it is that they're, whether it's the website or whatever. And it might be labeled in their Square profile, like, okay, they purchased 5 widgets at this price and 2 at this price. And so if you're looking at Square, it looks like, okay, that makes sense. But if you don't have the mapping correct with QuickBooks or whatever program you're using, you're not going to get that detail on that they were purchasing widgets. You're going to have a generic service line or sale of products, which is fine. I mean, it is capturing the sale. However, for management and analyzing purposes, you don't know at the end of the month what you sold, how that breaks down, where, how things are trending or whatever. So it's really important just to make sure that that detail is present. And again, you could go super overboard with it down to the very last detail, which I wouldn't really recommend unless you're just in a very specialized industry. But at least having the categories broken down with what it is I'm providing my customers and how much of that am I selling is really important. So you need that ability to analyze it.
I agree. And, also in all of this, I guess there's a strategy behind the chart of accounts. There's a strategy. Not every accountant or a bookkeeper keeps books the same.
Right.
And GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles, gives a guideline, but there's some openness in what do you consider a cost of good versus a workroom expense, or what do you consider billable versus non-billable in each business. And so every company kind of has to go through the process of making some determination and then staying consistent in the way that they manage it in their books. You don't want it showing up as a cost of good in January and as an expense in February, because that's where you start getting into a mess and getting confused. And so there's this repetitive nature that we have to make our accounting clean.
Yes, totally.
And I've seen that all screwed up too. So
yeah, well, especially when you're dealing with job costing. It's important that if you close a job in May, that all the expenses related to that job are recorded in May also. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to track.
Okay, so there are so many others that we could definitely go down. But let me ask this. So when is the right time to hire a bookkeeper versus doing it yourself? I mean, some people are going to be listening to our conversation and they're going to be scared spitless because they're already thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so past this. And there are going to be others who go, you know what, it's okay. Mine's not that convoluted yet. And let's be honest, the chart of accounts doesn't have to start off as robust as you need it to be. It needs to start off as robust as you need it for then, but you do have to have a strategy because it can lock you in later for how your books need to be done. But your chart of accounts can grow with you as your business grows. I'm constantly adding products and items and services as my business has morphed, and that's totally okay. And removing some or archiving some that I'm no longer using or selling.
Right.
But there still has to have this great framework or backbone as you kind of, the skeleton of it still has to be well thought out to get started. So for clients that are, or designers who are out there listening to the podcast today, how do they know when, okay, I think it's time that I need to bring in an outside bookkeeper and not try to do this on my own anymore?
I personally think whether or not you are hiring someone on a regular retainer, like a monthly retainer, I think at the very minimum, it would be super helpful if you are thinking of starting a business to at least have some consulting with someone up front. They can help, avoid pitfalls that you might be walking towards, and just assist in building some safe systems, ideas for like even internal controls if you have anyone working with you.
Oh, good comment there. Yeah.
Yeah. So while it might be overwhelming to just hire someone and say, okay, I'm ready to just pay you and you do your thing and it'll be great, that's certainly an option. But if you're not ready to do that, at least get some good consulting from someone who can kind of help you get your ducks in a row, answer any questions. It would be a great time to find out, what this next year might look like and what I need to be planning for, or even getting some projections and models together. So you'll know what you need to do to stay on track to get there.
And so what are some questions that they should ask before they engage in a business relationship with a bookkeeper or an accountant?
I think it's important to know, like, as I said, I'm really hands-on. So I want everyone to be working with an accountant or bookkeeper who will partner with them, not like ownership of the company partner, but just really
partner in their success.
Yeah, and be vested in it, at least emotionally. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
For example, I talked to somebody 2 weeks ago. It was a referral from another client. They called, said, so-and-so sent us to you. We just started last month and we need help. And he said, we need help with our taxes. And I said, well, what do you mean? You just started. What kind of tax trouble are you in? He's like, well, maybe not taxes. We just need everything. And I said, well, are you using a software or anything? And he's like, no, we're not doing anything. We have nothing set up. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing business-wise right now? Like, I'm just trying to get a feel for like what their needs were. It's a company that sells lunches to people at their workplace. Like they'll deliver of lunches. A month into business, or in business for a month, and they already were making 300 meals a week. And I was so excited. I don't even know this guy. I got so excited. Like, that is amazing. I said, what are you doing for marketing? He said, nothing. It's just word of mouth. And that's awesome. That's really awesome. So then we took off, and I was asking a ton of questions, mainly not as I'm trying to figure out, what I should charge them or whatever. Like, I genuinely want to know, how are you doing this? What's driving it and all that stuff. So I think it's important that if you're going to talk to somebody, they need to be excited for the possibility of what you might do. Or
that fits into how they advise you. If they're excited about what you're doing, they're going to advise you with excitement. If they are bored silly with your business, I promise you the advice will be very different, because they're not as engaged in looking for solutions and creative ideas. I'm not talking about creative accounting, but just creative ideas to move you forward or things to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you need to be working with someone who enjoys business and talking to you about yours. It should not be a dry conversation. I know people have this preconceived notion of accountants just being super introverted and socially awkward and all those things. And maybe we are to a degree, but it's important to have the conversations, and they should not be dry conversations unless you are also bored with what you're doing.
That's true. Very true.
Exciting and fun conversations, because there are so many possibilities for where you can take everything. And I think, of course, they need to be experienced. They need to understand your industry. They need to ask, when you're in a conversation with a potential accountant or bookkeeper, they need to be asking you questions as well about your business to figure out if they are a good fit as well. It's kind of like a two-way interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would also ask, what is their process for, if I'm going to hire you to be my monthly person, what do I get out of that? Do I just get a PDF at the end of your closing my books, or are we going to have a conversation? When's the next time I will be physically speaking with you? Will it be at the end of the year, or not at all until you're ready to raise my rates next year? Whatever it is. So,
right.
I think you'll.
What are the rules of engagement here, right?
Yeah, I think you'll understand. You get a vibe from people, not to be all vibey.
You do that. Yep.
Just like when you're hiring someone to work on your team, you want to make sure you'll work well together. So the personalities need to not conflict and all of that. And are you just an admin person who can do this, so you're doing it? Or are you going to be able to say to me, hey, I've noticed this has kind of become a pattern. You're doing X, Y, or Z. You really need to not do that. Why don't we try this instead? Or, not be a complete, like a minion that's just going to follow along. Your job as the accountant or bookkeeper is to keep things accurate and moving in the best interest of your client. So if your client is doing something not in their best interest, they need to be made aware of it.
Okay, so let's just talk about it a minute. I think that is a huge area to focus on for just a second. The bookkeeper or accountant that you hire is to help you keep this thing between the ditches. And if they see that you're getting ready to run into a ditch, they need to raise the flag. Mm-hmm. And I've been shocked sometimes at bookkeepers who say, well, I assume that they know what they're doing, and they just let them do it. They won't raise the flag. They don't want to step in front of the moving train and say, this is not good for you. They just assume that the client knows all the rules and regulations, so that if they're doing everything squirrely, that they're choosing to do it. And I know that in my coaching practice, I'll say to people, you do understand it's illegal for you to do this. You do understand that this is not okay, that you do understand that this goes against IRS regulation, blah, 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 blah. If you still choose to do it, I just need to know that it's in writing, that I have mentioned to you that this is not in your best interest. And then people are going to choose what they're going to choose.
Right.
9 times out of 10, they say to me, oh my gosh, I didn't know, or I've been given bad advice, or I thought that I could, or I didn't know that law changed. And so, once in a while they'll say, yeah, I know it's completely illegal and I'm going to do it anyway. I mean, and I can't do anything about that. They're not my books, right? I'm not doing it in my books, but that's theirs. But somebody has to say something.
Yep.
Ignorance of the law does not get you out of it when they go through your books. When you explained what your family's, some of their challenges, ignorance didn't get you out of any of it. Ignorance is not going to work that way.
That's right.
And I think it is a great question to ask your bookkeeper or accountant is something along the lines of, if you see that there is something in my company that goes against the IRS regulations or that is not in my best interest, how are you going to let me know? Or will you let me know? And see how they respond to that. And if a bookkeeper can't, in return, ask the question, hey, Emily, hey, Michelle, so if I were to see things in your books that would raise a flag to the IRS, that would cause an audit, or that would take you down a bad path, how would you like for me to tell you? If they're not saying something to you like that, I would be concerned, because I've seen a lot of great bookkeepers who choose to zip it and not say anything, and they'll say, I'll let the accountant figure it out. Well, if it's not showing up clear enough for the accountant to find it, it's not going to be found. And then everybody's on the line when that audit comes, and those things are nasty.
Well, and again, like I look at my job is to keep them above board and heading toward their goal.
On the right side of the law here.
Yeah, like a painful audit's that's not in the prescription for getting us there. So, I mean, obviously audits happen and that's fine, but a painful one we want to avoid. And I don't want to be a reason, or my lack of letting you know what I see and what I think. I don't want that to be the cause of anyone's pain.
Exactly. So, Emily, what's one of the next big profit goals in your business?
Well, in the next 2 years, I'm really hoping the goal here is to purchase some property here locally that'll be sort of an entrepreneurial center where, there can be some office sharing rentals and meeting space and things like that. But I'd really like to have space for some masterminds and events that entrepreneurs can utilize here in the area.
That sounds exciting.
I would love to have that here for myself. But also just knowing how many people are kind of in the same boat. They're growing their businesses. They might not have a team big enough to really justify a huge rental place, but they still want the community of it. And entrepreneurship is lonely. So I'm hoping that might be some sort of solution for that, at least in my neck of the woods.
So you're so like your family. Here's the challenge. Let me find the solution. I love that. I love that mindset, though. It's so positive. Emily, tell everybody where they can find you. Where are you hanging out on social media and online?
You can find me at my website, www.beancountery.com. We have a Facebook page as well, and
you're hanging out on LinkedIn.
we're hanging out on LinkedIn under Emily Moore. Instagram is at Bean Countery.
That sounds great. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining me today and for helping eradicate entrepreneurial poverty.
Yes.
And I know that we both just have a heart for entrepreneurs if they're putting all the blood, sweat, and tears in, because I'm doing it and you're doing it. We're both putting in the blood, sweat, and tears, and we know they are too. And the goal is for them to get paid and to be able to have that money to live their life and to make their businesses run well and with success. And so I love that we both have a very similar why in helping business owners achieve that goal.
Right. Same here. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a good time.
It was great. It was great. Well, I'll have you back soon and we'll talk about some more bookkeeping and accounting issues because they'll come up. So I'll just tell any of the listeners right now, if you have bookkeeping questions and accounting questions that you want me to address on the podcast, shoot me a note. Emily will come back and we'll answer them for you.
That sounds great.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Emily is so smart and so passionate about helping business owners attain the freedom they desire while doing a business that they love. And my goal for you is the same, to help you love your business and to be able to look at the numbers and know what they mean, not just a checklist of the email came in or the PDF came in. And how do I help you do that? First, I would have you go join the Designer's Inner Circle. So you can go over to scarletthreadconsulting.com. I want you to join the Designer's Inner Circle. When you are in my special community, you're able to ask any question about your business, any question. It doesn't have to be about profitability or finances. It could be about communication. It could be about hiring. It can be about scaling. Doesn't matter. You ask it and I will help you get an answer. Then what I want you to do is take the Understanding Your Financials course. You heard Emily and I talk about that. Start with that course. Knowing where your numbers are, knowing how they're generated, where they come from, and how to analyze them is absolutely critical. And then when you have mastered that, I want you to move into Master Your Profit. And that's where you get to actually make the numbers sing and dance and do whatever you need them to do to support the lifestyle that you want. So do it right now. Go over to scarletthreadconsulting.com and join the Designer's Inner Circle to get started on a path and a journey to freedom. Because honestly, every step you make moves you towards profitability, and it doesn't happen by accident.